My camera is out for repair, so I'm going to have to do a faceless YouTube video today, and hopefully all this is going to get resolved after. I would like to give a shout out to Cat Lady, who has asked me to do a video on this subject, and I'm hoping that you find this video helpful. I hope all of you do. What I'll do is explain as best I can on the 6 stages a person goes through after leaving a narcissist, and then I want to save the best for last, which is to show you a way for you to lift the fog pretty easily and get unstuck with all these emotions that you're probably still feeling. So let's get started. Leaving a narcissistic relationship, it doesn't bring instant relief. It brings stages, emotional, psychological, and physical stages, because what you were in, it wasn't just a relationship, it was conditioning. Today, I want to walk you through the stages many survivors experience after they leave narcissistic abuse. And one important thing to know, these stages, they're not linear here. You don't graduate from one and never feel it again. They overlap, they repeat, it's all layers, unfortunately, and that's normal. So I'm going to give you the stages, but do keep in mind, though, that everyone is different depending on what stage they're at in their lives. Some left because they were so emotional in the moment that they made a decision without taking the time to process. Some were left, and others had spent a while working on self before exiting the building. But regardless of the house, there's still a cleanup to be made, because there's always a mess to clean up after the party. So let's take a look. Stage 1, shock and survival mode. Right after the breakup, many survivors expect relief, but instead what comes first is shock. Emotionally, you might feel numb or completely flooded. You might feel a coldness and a disbelief that it's finally over. The nightmare is over. Yet at the same time, there's this duality that can be really hard to identify. Relief and terror somehow exist at the same time. Some of you might feel guilty for leaving, even though you were being harmed, and question yourself as to whether you made the right decision. And a part of you might worry that the partner's okay. Psychologically, your brain is still in survival mode, and you still feel responsible for them. You're hyper aware. You replay conversations. You second guess yourself, because in narcissistic abuse, you were trained to doubt your own perception. Physically, your body's running on adrenaline. It still is. Sleep is disrupted. Your appetite changes. You're exhausted, but you can't rest. This is your nervous system still acting like the threat is present, because for a long time, it was. And it's confusing, because it's like you went from completely busy doing for them, busy fighting with them, busy trying to please them, be it pleasing to make sure that they won't be putting you down again, ignoring you, or trying to put an end to a fight. But you've been busy, and all of a sudden, everything goes dead. There's no one to work for anymore. There isn't any goal left, because you left yourself behind long ago in this. Everything has been solely about them, so you're left feeling empty. Part of you is angry that they haven't tried to get in touch with you or apologize. You're hurt because once again, they aren't acknowledging you. Again, you don't matter. You're left with those feelings, the very issue that you had with them throughout this whole relationship. You might also feel afraid that they'll take revenge on you, and yet somehow wanting to run back to them. It's really confusing. Afraid that they'll meet someone else. Just a cascade of emotions running through you. They're finally gone, but your stress levels are through the roof. Big conditioning. Let's move on to stage 2. Trauma bond withdrawal. This stage confuses survivors the most and causes the most shame. Emotionally, you miss them. You might find yourself longing for them. You might feel a need for closure. Some of you might think that perhaps the fact that you did deem it serious enough to leave, that this gave the narcissist a wake-up call and hope that they'll come begging with full intent to change. And then you find yourself jumping every time you hear a text notification in hope that it's them. Or you often check your email searching to see if they tried to reach you, because a part of you still wants to hear from them. And how many of you have found yourself on their Instagram pages or Facebook to see what they're doing, stalking them? And then you judge yourself for it. What you're experiencing, it isn't love, it's trauma bonding. The intermittent reinforcement, the affection followed by devaluation, the promises followed by pain, created a powerful attachment loop. Your brain learned to associate relief with the very person who caused the harm. So once again, your mind starts minimizing the abuse and romanticizing the good moments. So don't hate yourself here. You're normal. You question whether it was really that bad. And this can feel like withdrawal, anxiety, tight chest, panic, shaking, and nausea. Stage 3, grief and emotional collapse. Once the nervous system senses some level of safety, something shifts. The emotions that you couldn't afford to feel before start to surface. The fear of not being able to make it on your own can sometimes come back full force because of the conditioning. The fear that somehow your life will never work out. Who is ever going to love me? Because it got to a point that the narcissist was all you knew. Some of you have been isolated. Friends and family had moved on without you or had abandoned you due to the choices that you made or the triangulation that took place with the narcissist, turning everybody against you. All the doubts that were instilled in you, and now that monster comes out from under the bed and you're left with facing those fears. And they're huge because they've been growing inside of you for years now, sometimes since childhood, actually many times. And these fears unable to be processed because, like I said, all focus had been on them. There was never any time for you. And because of that, you grieve the relationship that you thought you had, because in the end, it was all you had. You didn't even have your own you. So finding yourself alone is quite the shock here. You grieve the future that you were somehow promised. You grieve the version of yourself who tried so hard to make it work. So anger, sadness, despair, resentment, sometimes all in the same day. Then through all these emotions and grieving and binge watching YouTube videos on the subject, some days reality begins to land. You see patterns that you couldn't see before, and with that clarity often comes a very common question: how did I not see this? The more time that goes by, the more you gain clarity and understanding. But like I said before, these are layers. These stages are not linear. You don't graduate from one and never feel it again. They overlap, like I said. Physically, your body might feel heavy. Fatigue sets in. Old aches appear. And your immune system can really take a hit because even though you left a stressful situation, you continue to be stressed. This isn't you falling apart either. This is your body finally exhaling after holding itself together for too long. Stage 4, we have anger and awakening. For a lot of survivors, anger comes late, and when it does, it can feel overwhelming. Emotionally, you might feel rage, not just at them, but at the injustice itself, the gaslighting, the way that you were blamed for everything. And this anger isn't necessarily toxic, not always. It can be clarifying as long as you don't stay there. But eventually the fog starts to lift. You start connecting the dots. You get the manipulation, the projection, the control tactics. You stop internalizing their behavior as your failure or that you're the one that wasn't lovable. In time, physically, energy begins to return. Sleep slowly improves. Your body releases tension it's been holding for years. Anger at this stage isn't about revenge. It's about self-protection finally coming online. Because you never processed your emotions, so stay tuned. Stage 5, rebuilding the self. This is where survivors often say, I don't know who I am anymore. And with good reason, because narcissistic abuse slowly erodes identity. Emotionally, self-compassion begins to replace self-blame, and hope starts to appear in small moments. Fear of trusting again is common, and it's understandable, so be gentle with yourself, and in time, you'll start to learn boundaries. You'll rediscover preferences. You will realize how much of yourself that you abandoned to keep the peace. And then physically, your nervous system becomes more regulated. You feel more present in your body. Your energy stabilizes. You're not becoming someone new here. You're reconnecting with who you were before you learned to survive by shrinking. The last stage is stage 6, integration and post-traumatic growth. This stage is not about forgetting. It's about integration. Emotionally, there's steadiness, peace that doesn't depend on anyone's approval, acceptance without denial, radical acceptance. That's a big one. The trauma becomes part of your story, not your identity. You trust your intuition more. That's if you work on self, though. Otherwise, you might just end up in another cycle of abuse with the next partner. And that's why I want you to watch till the end, because if you do apply what I'm going to tell you, you're going to recognize red flags faster. You'll understand your own resilience. Healing doesn't mean the past disappears. It means that it no longer controls you. So now let's get to the good stuff. What to do. The very first thing that you want to do is learn emotional literacy. And why? Because with that, you will get unstuck. You'll start having respect for self and be able to set clear boundaries. And the boundaries I'm referring to is your own boundaries, because that'll change your life. So let's take a look. One of the biggest reasons that survivors still feel stuck and paralyzed or confused is because they were never taught how to process their emotions. Problems, they have to be identified before they can be solved, whether that's in science, math, or within yourself. So when someone says they feel hurt or angry, there's always more information beneath that emotion. Beneath anger might be fear. Beneath fear might be embarrassment. Beneath embarrassment, maybe shame or grief, or even a combination of all of it. It's only once we can identify our emotions that we can begin to free ourselves. And this is where emotional literacy comes in. Growing up, many of us were taught that saying no makes other people unhappy, and that making other people unhappy makes us bad, and being bad meant rejection. And over time, we learn to suppress our internal experience instead of understanding it. As adults, we often know something feels wrong, but we don't know what we feel beyond a few broad emotions. And that's why even after leaving, you still feel frozen and in pain. You feel hurt, but you're still confused. Cognitive dissonance here, because you don't know how you feel beyond that. And that's important, because if you don't know how you feel, you're not going to be able to respond. You think you know how you feel, anger, hurt, and resentment, but that's just surface stuff. When we don't know how we feel, we cannot make proper decisions. When we don't know how we feel, we can't honor our own values. That's the bottom line. When we don't know how we feel, we can't respect ourselves, and in turn, others don't respect us back. We're still in the programming. We're programmed to shut up. You're bad to say no to them, and you have to focus all your attention on them. Where's the space to process and file? What's happening when you learn emotional literacy is you're acknowledging the self, which is the very issue that caused you to become codependent or attract toxic relationships, because of your subconscious belief that you don't deserve better in the first place, not being acknowledged. And what starts to happen when you realize the depth of feelings that another is causing or has caused you to feel, you naturally start to give yourself permission to stand up for yourself. Naturally, no effort. Make the effort in watching your list of emotions, and the rest will take care of itself. A deep love for self starts to take place here, and the self-hatred that you had disappears. And I'm about to show you how. You'll start to see the truth and the depth of how you so don't deserve to be treated in this manner by not only the narcissist, but by everyone. You're going to see it clearly. You'll begin to see you as an equal and as deserving. I'm telling you, if you commit to this, you're going to see the change for yourself. The guilt is going to fall away. You'll not only begin to think that you matter, but you'll feel that at your deepest core. It doesn't take very long either to start seeing results. Like, really doesn't take long. And like everything else, there's going to be times of feeling empowerment when you do this, where other times memories are going to come up. Forgiveness for a parent could take place, and sometimes tears will need to be shed. Everyone's journey is different, but stick with it and you're going to see the shift. I want you to think about something. When you look at successful people, all successful people in life take time to process things on any given subject, and that's one of the big factors in their success. Okay, so here we go. I want you to go to Google and type in list of emotions. Choose one that has a good amount of words, not just the basics. And if you can find one that has the emotions organized, like all the anger words in one list and the happy in another, that'll save you time. And print it out, carry it with you, or save it on your phone. Anytime someone says or does something that bothers you, I want you to look at your list And I'm talking about every small thing that leaves you feeling bad somehow. For example, a friend doesn't message you right away and you feel hurt. Someone says something to you that leaves you feeling strange. Someone keeps asking you to do something that you really don't want to do, like babysit or borrow money. Anything that leaves you feeling not so good, feeling off, irritated, uneasy, or less than. Any and all memories that come up with your ex on something that they did, said, or made you feel. How do I feel? How do I feel? Go down the list and identify each emotion that you can relate to. And don't just check boxes quickly here. You want to connect to each word that you can relate to for a few seconds. Something will happen. Sometimes a deep-needed release of tears is going to take place. Let that happen. Sometimes a memory. Other times you'll get clarity on how deeply someone's actions have affected you. Anytime a memory comes up, not just sometimes, anytime an interaction leaves you feeling small, anytime you notice guilt, shame, or self-doubt creeping in, anytime something feels not right, even if you can't explain why, go back to the list. Again, anytime, not just sometime, because when you ignore it, you are ignoring the self. You're rejecting the self. And as you begin to recognize the depth of your own emotional experience, something shifts naturally. You start giving yourself permission, not because you forced it, but because it becomes impossible not to. Self-respect grows. Clarity increases. Guilt loosens its grip. You begin to feel at your core that you matter, not just intellectually, but emotionally. There's going to be moments of empowerment. There's going to be moments where memories surface. I said that a while ago, but I want to say it again. And the tears need to be shed. That's part of the process. Stick with it. This is how emotional literacy is rebuilt. And this is one of the big steps in reclaiming yourself. You are acknowledging self, the very issue you most likely had since childhood. And that changes everything. And then adding an addendum here, this doesn't take long before you see results. When I did this, it took me, and I still apply it when I need to, I literally started seeing results within, I think it was 1 or 2 weeks, and then the results became even stronger after, but I started seeing results pretty much right away. Okay, so that is all for today. Feel free to leave a comment down below if there's anything that I missed in the stages, and if you're willing to start working on emotional literacy, let me know. I really want to hear from you. But give yourself the space because you matter. If you start feeling that you matter, your next relationship will be way better because you will attract way better. Take care of yourselves, and we shall see you in the next video. Bye for now.